Welcome again to another installment of the Weatherford College Speaker Series. We are delighted to have a good friend of mine, Dr. Queena Fuller. It's Fuller, right? It's not Grant.
Grant.
I'm sorry, Dr. Queena Grant. And we've known each other for quite some time. We were both working in for-profit industry for many years. And now she is in the great state of Louisiana, working for the community college system. But we'll let her introduce herself. But tell us, how did you get started in your career? And what were the key turning points that led you into leadership?
Okay. So as you mentioned, I am currently the executive director for strategic enrollment management for the Louisiana Community and Technical College System. I began my career actually working at a cosmetology school. I took a job as an admissions rep
Hmm.
in Amarillo, Texas, of all little places. And that's kind of what got my start. I was an admissions rep. And then after a year and a half, I was promoted to director of admissions. And so then I was managing my own team, actually two locations, allied health and both cosmetology. And so that's what gave me my start in leadership, managing those two locations and two different teams.
So, from that launching point, when you hear the phrase organizational leadership, what does it mean to you?
Mm. Holistically, organizational leadership is the entire organization, just as it stands, and it's, all persons, as well as the culture. I think that that's usually left out of that discussion. So not just managing people, managing processes, policies, and the culture as well. I think, managing the culture of an organization is just as important as all of the other components.
We have a diverse group of professionals in this program, meaning we have some that are traditional college students that are in the program looking to graduate and start in one of their first professional roles. We have people that have 0 to 5 or 7 years experience, those that have 10 or 12 to 15 years plus, and are kind of hitting that kind of glass ceiling of you don't have the degree to continue to ascend in those positions. Um, Talk to us a little bit about um, entering into that professional role. What are some things that over the years you learned, that you tried, used, tested, that for someone that's making that transition, either first professional job or now I'm qualified to get the position that needs the bachelor's, what are the things that I need to keep top of mind or know um, within myself to be successful?
I think just first, it's okay to be entry level. I think that, we get these degrees and, we come in thinking that we're going to be right at the top.
Hmm.
Everybody doesn't, start at the top, and that's okay. I think that what's really important is that you make yourself available and then cross-functional, right? So even if I'm in one department, if there's an opportunity for me to serve on a committee or, help in other areas, I think that's what, sets you apart, which could lead to other opportunities, right? So the more available you are, the more versatile you are, the more that you can show that are cross-functional, that you can work across departments and work across entities, communicate across departments. I think that you set yourself up readily because a manager in another department may see something in you that they're willing to train, right? So I might be working in student services today, but I served on a committee, with academics, and and that could lead to another role, for me in the future. So just being open and lending yourself to opportunities across all functions of organizations, I think is great and beneficial.
One of the courses in our sequence for graduation is ethics and leadership.
Mm.
So, can you share a time when ethics or integrity guided a tough decision you had to make?
Oh man, absolutely. And I go back to working at that community college in Amarillo. And so what I failed to mention was after being director of admissions for a year and a half, I was promoted to school director. So there I was, very young in my career, 25, 26 years old. I wasn't even 30 and running an entire school. And
Wow.
that's faculty, all departments. And so we had an accreditation audit. And the committee let me know that, we had a finding. And
Mm.
so one of the VPs, and I'm not going to mention his name, he said, well, that's an easy fix. We can backdate this and, fix
Yikes.
those documents, right? And then give it to the committee. And so at that moment, I had to decide whether or not to go with my VP, who is over me, right?
Mhm.
Or do what's ethically right and take the finding. And so ultimately, we decided to take the finding.
Mhm.
And so in those situations, what I learned to say is, yes, we did this wrong. Here's the date that we corrected it. And moving forward, I can show where we fixed it versus doing duct tape and bubble gum, trying to backdate documents, which would have got us a finding. And so, that was a very difficult position for me to be in. But
Mhm.
ultimately, I chose what was right, what was to do ethically sound. And again, even though we got the finding, it wasn't a finding bad enough to hurt the visit, and we still came out on top, with the recommendation for accreditation.
Another course in organizational leadership for us is conflict and negotiation.
Mm.
Uh, Describe a challenging conflict or negotiation you faced, and what strategies help you resolve it effectively, and what can our students know about resolving conflicts with as little collateral damage as possible.
Mm. You know what? I'm gonna use a time old age one of admissions and financial aid.
Mm,
Although admissions and financial aid work up under the same umbrella,
mm,
of enrollment management, um, they conflict, right? So in admissions, we're trying to get people in as much as we possibly can. Financial aid are processors, right? So they don't necessarily see the people first, they see the process.
mm,
And so there have been many times that I had to negotiate with those department heads, regardless of the school that I work for, because there's always seemed to be that conflict. Can we do what's right for the student versus what your process is? And I
mm.
know that this is your process. I understand that this is your process, and it's hard to deviate from processes, but it's also important to realize that there are people behind those processes. And what's worked for me was getting them to see that, and meet that middle ground, because at the end of the day, our goal is to help the students.
Exactly. And I hope students that you're really hearing not only what she's saying, but when you think about how all of these things work together and all of these lessons and all of these um, experiences are transferable.
Yes.
You talk about how they were navigated. And I always had a coach that talked about how well do you process information?
Mm,
When you're presented with an issue, whether it's positive or negative, how do you go about processing the information? And if you can build your tolerance to always do it the same way, whether it's positive, negative, or indifferent, um, you'll fare a lot better because people start to know how you think. And
agreed.
know how you think, they won't bring these things where they want you to backdate a document. But I'm not being interviewed. Now, are there particular leadership theories or styles, in other words, transformational, servant, situational, that influence how you lead? What types of leadership theories or styles do you
I
use?
am very much so a servant leader, and I lead by example. And so I don't manage admissions teams anymore, but I'll use that as an example because that was the bulk of my career.
Mhm.
I wanted my teams to see that, I'm not bigger than picking up the phone and talking to a student myself. Or just because I'm in management doesn't mean that I'm no longer forward facing, that
Mm,
I'm willing to talk to a parent, that I'm willing to get on the phone and call a student that we haven't seen in class, or, I'm willing to pick up the phone and, track down a document for a student that we're trying to help get enrolled. And I think that that really makes a difference with your teams. Once your
Mhm.
team sees that you're willing to be beside them and not above them, um,
Mm.
that makes a world of difference. I share with people all the time as a director, Queena didn't enroll not one student, but I had to learn to motivate my team,
Mhm.
to believe in me and the vision that, our leadership set forth, because they hit the goals, right? And so the only way I could get that trust and that credibility and rapport with them was to be side by side with them.
Yes, yes, indeed. What practical advice or lessons learned would you share with students preparing to enter the workforce?
Ooh, practical advice: be open. One thing that has also helped me is that I was open to relocate. Don't be stuck, to your four walls of your city or your state. I have worked from California to Pennsylvania because I was open. And I know that everyone's situation does not lend to that. You may have children and families, but the more open you are to opportunities, the more opportunities that will land with you.
Yeah, you've been cross country.
I have.
And lastly, how do you see leadership changing? And I wrote this to say the next 5 or 10 years, but things are moving so fast these days. How do you see leadership changing in the next 2 to 5 years?
Oh man. I mean, we're at a very unique place, in the marketplace. Excuse me, with all four generations
Mhm.
working, together right now. We got the boomers that are retiring, we have Gen X that are moving up, we got our millennials, and then we have Gen Z in the middle. I think that it's a great opportunity for all four generations to learn from each other. That's one thing that I've gathered. And so I think that in the next 2 to 5 years, we're going to see, just a hodgepodge of leadership styles. We're going to see, very different models. Like right now, I come in the office 3 days a week. A few years ago, that would be unheard of. I would have been, mandated to be at my desk. I have the flexibility to pick up my son in the afternoons, and I might be on a call at 3 o'clock, but I'm in the pickup line. So so the times are changing. Technology is changing the way management is done. And again, the generational influence also on management. So I think that we're just going to be able to see a variety of different things in the way organizations are run in the next 2 to 5 years.
Absolutely. So what are your parting comments, your parting words, your affirmations? What are your parting things for our students?
Ooh, don't take anything personal.
Mm,
Don't take anything personal in the workplace. More than likely, it's not about you. Who knows what that person has going on? Um, and again, just be open.
all righty then. Well, we are again delighted to be able to have you come and share with us. These talks and part of the speaker series are so helpful, um, because a lot of times when we embark upon a professional journey, the things we don't know
Mm,
tend to cost us.
agreed.
And we want to make sure that whatever it is that you're holding on to, that you don't have to utilize all of it up front just to get you in the door. And we can
Agreed.
equip our students with some things that are helpful to them. And you have certainly done that today. So thank you so very much. Always good to see you. And whenever we can be helpful, whenever you're in Texas, you want to come by and see a beautiful little college out on the other side of Fort Worth, we'd be happy to have
I'd
you.
love to. I'd love to.